Hi and welcome to Pressing Matters. Here's a look at what's coming up. A recent U.S. Surgeon General's report is sounding the alarm. Drinking alcohol may be more dangerous than we thought. What you need to know. Updated state laws now require your child to sit in the back seat until they're 13 years old. And that's not all. The changes next. Planning to fly commercially in the U.S.? Why you need to make sure your Michigan ID is up to date before you do. Plus, online gaming is bringing in big money for the state, but where are those dollars going? And what kind of safeguards are in place? We'll take a look. Welcome back to Pressing Matters. A new report tonight from the U.S. Surgeon General is shaking up the way Americans think about alcohol. The findings, even moderate drinking may carry serious health risks, including an increased likelihood of cancer. The conversation around alcohol is changing, and it's happening everywhere, from public health offices to local restaurants and bars. Jamie Mankiewicz takes a look at why so many people are rethinking drinking.
For centuries, alcohol has been woven into our lives for many reasons, from celebrations to daily rituals, but new research is prompting many to rethink their drinking habits and what it could mean for their health.
I think the most surprising finding was that actually an increase in cancers occurred with just what most Americans would consider minimal drinking, like less than 2 drinks a week. Actually was associated with an increased risk of many different types of cancers.
Those types include mouth, throat, voice box, esophagus, breast in women, liver, and colon and rectum cancer. The report recommends no more than 1 drink per day for women and 2 for men, but it also makes clear no amount of alcohol is truly safe.
Alcohol changes the hormone levels, and so especially estrogen, and so can make you more likely to get breast cancer. They think about 4 to 5 more women per 100 actually have breast cancer because of their alcohol intake. That's a lot.
But for people in recovery, like Jessica Miller at the 1016 Recovery Network in Mount Pleasant, this isn't new information. It's long overdue confirmation.
So these are things that I think we were all hoping would have come out sooner, and now that they're out and the Surgeon General puts it out, it's like, okay, yes, there's some established reporting that people are going to be listening to. This is getting the attention and the traction that we want because we've been looking at this research for years.
But part of what makes drinking so dangerous, experts say, is how normalized it's become in everyday life.
Oftentimes, it's really not seen as a drug at all, when really it is. It is everywhere. So although you don't need it like you need food, the urge when you have an alcohol use disorder is that of which food or oxygen. So to see it everywhere, that can be really hard for somebody who's trying to abstain from it. Really hard. And the societal pressure to blend in with friends.
For Miller, this conversation is deeply personal. She understands firsthand the challenges of cutting back in a culture that normalizes drinking.
As a person in recovery myself, when I came into recovery, one of the things that I thought about is, who's going to want to be my friend, right? And it was easy for me to not feel included and to prioritize my health and my recovery over that desire to want to belong to something. I mean, it is really challenging.
But change is brewing. Across the country, bars and restaurants are embracing the shift, offering alcohol-free options. It's a response to growing demand from people who still want to enjoy a night out without the health risks.
It's not like fly-by-night, flash-in-the-pan type deal. I mean, it's here to stay, so we take it pretty seriously.
Woodshop Social in Mount Pleasant now offers a full mocktail menu, and it's not just for kids or people in recovery.
We use a lot of fresh herbs, and we use our own freshly squeezed juices, and we make our own simple syrups, and we've got a lot of different types of those. And we employ a lot of actual cooking techniques in our mocktails.
There's definitely been shifts where I'm like, I made so many tropical fizzes, or I made so many basil mint limeades. So yeah, no, there are nights where it's a good portion of our sales.
With new awareness and more inclusive drink menus, a cultural shift is already underway. And for many, it's a welcome one.
So it is creating spaces for people like myself that are in recovery to go and enjoy a night out without some of those pressures. Happy hour doesn't have to include alcohol all the time. I have hope for this generation coming up that they're really going to be the change in valuing their health and wellness and not feel that they need to drink.
Experts say it's not just about drinking less. It's about making informed choices for long-term health. With new research reshaping our understanding of alcohol, many are taking a second look at what's in their glass.
And then you're seeing a lot of people like my age, like me, like I told you earlier, I haven't had a drink in almost a year. And it was just like, I was kind of woke up one day and started weighing the pros and the cons of it. And it was like, okay, I don't have any pros.
I've definitely cut back a little bit on my drinking since dry January. I did that. Mocktails specifically are just really great because it just makes the social atmosphere of a restaurant more inclusive. So the more the merrier, I guess, right?
Thanks, Jamie. Michigan's car seat laws underwent a big update recently, so if you have children or grandchildren, here's what you need to know. Let's start with infants. They need to stay rear-facing until they're at least 2 years old or until they outgrow the height and weight limits on car seats. Next, from 2 to 5 years old, they should be in a forward-facing seat with a harness, again, until they outgrow it. Children between 5 and 8 years old or under 4'9" need to be in a belt positioning booster seat with lap and shoulder belt until they're 4'9" or 8 years old. Additionally, all children under 13 years old need to ride in the rear seat of a vehicle if one's available. If you're not sure what seat to use, go by your child's age, weight, and height, not just by their birthday. Finally, make sure their harness fits snug, no twists, and that chest clip should be right at armpit level. To learn more about the new laws, check out michigan.gov/car seats. The Real ID deadline is May 7th, and here's a quick breakdown of what that means for you. Real ID is a federally mandated form of identification that sets stricter security standards for state-issued driver's license and ID cards. It was created after 9/11 to enhance national security. Now, starting May 7th, you'll need a Real ID to board domestic flights or enter certain federal buildings unless you have a passport or another TSA-approved form of ID. You can spot a Real ID by a star in a gold circle or a star inside a state outline. Both are valid. Enhanced driver's licenses or IDs are automatically Real ID compliant, even if they don't show a star. Now, if you already have a valid Michigan enhanced license or ID, a U.S. passport, or a DHS trusted traveler card, you're all set. To apply for a Real ID, schedule an appointment at your local Secretary of State office online or call 888-SOS-MISH, that's 888-767-6424. And for a full list of what to bring with you, head to michigan.gov/RealID.
Michigan's one of the few states that are out there that has fully online casinos, and that's anything you find in a casino.
Gambling in Michigan doesn't require a trip to the casino anymore. It's as easy as pulling out your smartphone out of your pocket. A lot has changed since the earliest forms of playing for money, from gambling at casinos, including here in central Michigan, to sports betting. Understanding this lucrative world requires meticulous regulation and consumer protections, especially when the odds are stacked against you.
Gambling is the most highly regulated industry in the country, and that extends to the online stuff. There's lots of know your customer KYC steps and guidelines in place, and you do have to take a picture of your ID, you have to do these, you've got a lot of them make you do two-factor authentication.
Gambling has never been more accessible or more regulated, says Pat Evans with Katina Media, who follows the regulation and legislative side of online gaming. The amount of money sports betting and especially online gaming are generating here in Michigan is staggering.
In December, iGaming generated $45.9 million in taxes for the state. Internet sports betting taxes were $214,000.
Pat is talking about the tax revenue generated in December of 2024, but take a look at the big picture numbers for last year. Online casinos and sports betting became legal in Michigan back in 2021. Michigan right now is one of just a few states where you can gamble online, but more states are trying to legalize it.
All these states are looking towards online casino, but a lot of them are now seeing the headwinds and the objections to the sports betting expansion, so it's harder for these states. And the legislators are saying, well, this is a regressive tax, so this isn't good. So Michigan got it all done over one hump, and honestly, Michigan is besides Nevada and New Jersey, which are massive historical gaming centers, Michigan is probably the leading regulatory body in the country when it comes to online gaming.
Also known as iGaming, it gives people the ability to play casino-style card games, roulette, and slots right on your phone or handheld device. You can play right from home. It's the job of the Michigan Gaming Control Board to regulate the state's gaming industry. They tell us its primary role is overseeing the Detroit commercial casinos, online gaming, sports betting, horse racing, and charitable gaming. A board spokesperson tells us that as the gaming industry has evolved over the years, especially with the rise of online gaming and sports betting, they've incorporated a, quote, robust regulatory framework to protect consumers, prevent illegal operations, and promote responsible gaming practices.
Are there workarounds? Can somebody's dad just let the 14-year-old have access to a sports book? Probably. Is that okay? No. If the sports books find this out, they do crack down on you. They do ban the accounts.
And crackdowns do happen. Recently, the Sioux Online reported that the board sent cease and desist letters to 13 illegal offshore gaming websites, stating the operators do not meet standards for responsible gaming, consumer protection, or data security. The board also determines how and where the revenue gets allocated. Those numbers are also provided in a yearly report. Here are the numbers, which include more than $500 million to the School Aid Fund, another $3 million to compulsive gambling prevention, along with $3.75 million to Don't Regret the Bet. The Michigan Gaming Control Board tells WCMU that through these efforts, Michigan continues to prioritize responsible gaming while fostering a safe and supportive environment for players, which includes the Don't Regret the Bet marketing campaign that raises awareness for the risks of problem gambling. Michigan's Department of Health and Human Services oversees addiction and recovery efforts related to gambling in the state. The money it receives funds a variety of preventative and informational resources, including the state's problem gambling helpline 1-800-270-7117, which can put someone struggling in touch with nearby clinicians, groups, or virtual help.
You're seeing more and more money, and you're seeing legislators in states go back and say, let's put more money, whether it's tax revenue or create a new fund that the sports books can pay into to help increase prevention, treatment, recovery for problem gambling, because they do recognize it's a big issue, and they do realize that a gambling customer that doesn't have money isn't a customer anymore. So again, it's in their best interest to keep people healthy. They're making sure it's a, up and up industry, and doing all the things it can to protect consumers to their best ability, and cracking down on the people who are trying to take advantage of Michiganders.
Turning to online forms of currency now, chances are you've heard of Bitcoin, often referred to as the world's first cryptocurrency. Despite its volatility, some see it as a safer investment versus more traditional routes because it's decentralized, meaning the government and banks don't manage it. Understanding it is complicated. You can't touch it and you can't see it. It requires getting familiar with new forms of currency and involves navigating technology, economics, and digital finance. To better break it down, we spoke with Sahil Goswami with Dart Bank. Is it something you can see? Is it something you can touch?
Well, yes and no. Technically, no. It lives online. It lives in the ledger. It doesn't even have to be online. But there are ways to store Bitcoin that don't necessarily require the internet. It just requires something called cold storage, the ability to download your money literally onto the equivalent of a USB drive.
And then what do you do with that online money?
Well, that's the big debate. A lot of people view Bitcoin specifically as a store of value, a hedge against broader markets, an alternative to gold. Some view it as a means of transacting, and some just view it as a speculative asset to try and make some money on.
How long has Bitcoin, or the idea of Bitcoin, or even cryptocurrency been around?
The idea of a virtual currency has been kicked around for decades. It was brought up in the 70s and 80s around what it would mean to try and transact over the earlier versions of the internet in the late 80s. But Bitcoin itself was a post-08 reaction to the recession, to a lack of faith in banks, and a lack of faith in the idea that a central reserve bank or a central monetary authority could really dictate the supply of money and the value of what you held.
Is Bitcoin the only cryptocurrency that's worth anything, or are there others that have kind of similar value?
So when Bitcoin first came about, it was one of a kind, really all there was. For many years that was true, and then eventually we started to see others pop up. Some more focused on enabling transactions, some more focused on privacy, some focused on international money movement. As time has passed, the number of cryptocurrencies has gone from tens, hundreds, thousands to millions. And that's where we sit today. There are millions of cryptocurrencies. It takes the length of time it took me to say the word to create a cryptocurrency today. It's as easy as ever. Okay. And you have folks creating them left and right.
What is that creation process, the mining process? And maybe those two different processes, I'm not sure.
So crypto itself seems to have been born alongside Bitcoin by the anonymous creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, who created Bitcoin, made it a fixed supply of 21 million to avoid inflation. We still don't know the identity of that individual or group, but we do know that it exists. It took off. It was very reactionary to the Great Recession. And the way that the network broadly works, and these miners and all these terms we hear about, is that if I transact with you, that transaction is recorded on a public ledger that's available worldwide and validated by these miners. So these miners work to validate these transactions as well as solve these complex equations that discover newly minted Bitcoin as part of that 21 million. That supply is fixed. The point is miners have a really important role. They're there to validate transactions and help uncover new Bitcoin through these complex cryptographic equations that find new Bitcoin among the 21 million that will ever exist. And that role requires a lot of complex equipment. But the rewards themselves are, as they validate these transactions and uncover the new Bitcoin, they get to keep that for themselves. And that's the reward they get for validating these transactions.
How do you become a miner?
It's really easy. Anyone can do it. Anyone could do it. The likelihood that you'll be able to mine Bitcoin while doing it, very limited. Really requires a lot of complex equipment.
Why is it considered so volatile compared to more traditional investments like gold or stocks?
Well, gold is collateralized by the metal. It is speculative on the idea that there is scarcity associated with gold, and that means that the value does go up as folks hedge against risk, because it's been a hedge against risk for decades. Fundamentally, volatility is always interesting. And the idea that you can have a currency that is independent of any government, any bank, and can be used by the same person sitting in New York or sitting in Seoul is an appealing prospect for those who are looking for the idea of financial freedom. I think the spirit of Bitcoin, the spirit of crypto, is that you want the ability to do what you need to do. And I don't know of anything more American than personal liberty.
Do you think it'll ever stabilize? Or do you think there's always going to be kind of the sense of unknown?
It's all a relative term. Stable coins by design are meant to be stable.
Yeah.
A stable coin that's worth $1 should always be $1. The reality is that Bitcoin does not necessarily act on the idea of stability.
So then do you think it's just a fad? Or do you think it's going to continue to become a bigger part in our financial future?
Definitely the latter. I think each time crypto has really been in that public spotlight, it's been a bigger wave. So we've seen it ebb and flow, where it's fallen out of favor, fallen into more of an area of disinterest, and then come roaring back. And we're seeing that happen more and more often, where each time it comes roaring back, it really does capture a lot more interest, a lot more eyes, and a lot more folks willing to dive in and learn more. Bitcoin is more accessible today than it ever has been. You can buy the actual currency from an exchange. You can buy a derivative version of that through an ETF. And I'd say the latter has become a little more recommended. It's easier to do. It's integrated directly into what a lot of people do today when they buy their stocks.
We do want to stress, Sahil is not a financial planner and not providing financial advice. For those who want to learn more about it, he strongly suggests educating yourself first and foremost. Thanks for watching, and thank you for your continued support for WCMU Public Media. We'll be back soon with another edition of Pressing Matters.